With Governor Mike DeWine talking about what he calls intoxicating hemp. The governor very much so has been talking about marijuana and hemp-related products over the past couple of weeks. He's going to be explaining more now.
Particularly for children who are buying this product. And Andy will talk a moment about how this was purchased and the other two, but again, kind of note what this is said. You can't probably read it up here, but it's got James Harden's name on there. And I'm told that when you open this up, these are little shoes inside. These are gummies. You can't tell, but I can press that, you can tell it's gummies. But again, something really aimed at children. If you look at the back, James, we'll look at this side, James Harden Collector Edition. And you turn over here, gummy candy, and then of course on the other side it says THC. So two things you probably shouldn't see together, candy and THC. Andy will talk about how that was purchased. A couple other ones that were purchased. Take a look at that. Again, what would appear to be Tony the Tiger. I'm sure it's not Tony the Tiger, but it certainly appears to be Tony. Cereal bars. Just for information, this is 1999. This is 1999. I think this one was $15. Andy, you want to come up and tell us how you got these?
Yes, Governor, thank you.
I could be your prop guy or whatever.
No, thank you. Governor, you asked me to talk a little bit about these products and what we're seeing with respect to law enforcement. I'm going to talk about how we got those. Look, not too long ago, if you were underage and you wanted to get high on THC or THC products, you had to have a drug dealer, you had to have somebody that you knew who had access to the illicit drug market. Typically, you had to meet your dealer in secret, out of sight, and typically your dealer would sell you a THC product in a form where it had to be smoked. You would then smoke that THC product, if that's the form it was in hiding, or at least somewhere where an adult couldn't see you or couldn't smell what you were doing. There was a nefarious side to all of this activity, a seedy side to using these THC type products. And that was a barrier that we know not all the time kept kids from doing it, but often it would dissuade or slow a kid's access to these types of drugs. And I think we have a slide here showing some of the packaging. Now let's fast forward to 2023. In 2023, as a high school student, I can walk into a gas station or a convenience store and purchase and pairing THC products that are packaged in a way that's specifically designed for kids in a gummy form that's basically in the same form as candy I've been eating my entire life. You see the slide here. Now look, a lot of times we see this is a Narcotics Intelligence Center product that they put together as part of their work in this space. And we talk about this advertising by using these types of products, but if you look, this is for real. These two cereal bars were purchased last night. And when they were purchased, I purchased them for the purpose of this press conference to show how these items are marketed to kids. When I went up to the clerk and put these on the counter, as he was checking me out, he said, hey, look, if you don't have a tolerance for this stuff, you need to go easy. He said, this stuff's going to hit really hard, and you're probably only going to want to try a quarter of one of these at first. When I got out of the car, I had my daughter sitting in the car. We were on our way home from a basketball game. I got out of the car. I threw these in the car. She said, Dad, that looks just like cereal. That looks just like Cocoa Puffs and Frosted Flakes. So these products are absolutely being designed and marketed to kids. Furthermore, this completely unregulated form of Delta H THC, if I'm a teenager, it can get me high or impaired to the point where I can no longer safely operate a car. And if I'm not careful, these products can make me sick or put me in the ER. Law enforcement professionals, especially school resource officers, have been talking about this issue for a while now. They've been expressing concern over the way these substances are marketed to kids and the way or the ease at which kids have access to these products. Governor, again, wanted me to talk about how easy it is for these kids to get these products. And instead of just talking to you about it, we decided to show you how easy it was. Over the weekend, we took two 15-year-old high school students who had just finished basketball practice to buy Delta 8 gummies. We used 15-year-olds instead of 17-year-olds because we didn't want there to be any confusion or any doubt on behalf of the clerk who was going to sell this stuff as to whether or not they were actually adults. So we used younger teenagers. We took them straight from basketball practice. They were still sweaty. They still had their basketball clothes on. One of them still had his shorts on from basketball. 10 degrees. He walked into this place with his shorts on. Look, there was no doubt when you looked at these kids, there was no doubt that they were clearly underage. Their instructions were not to be tricky, not to try act any older than what they were. If they were asked for their age, they were to tell the truth. If they were asked if they had an ID, they were just to tell the clerk they didn't have one. And that was it. We didn't tell them, other than ask for Delta 8 gummies, we didn't tell them anything else to get or give them any further instructions. Within 10 minutes and within 3 miles of their school, they walked into a BP gas station and purchased these THC gummies with no questions asked. And Amber, we have a recording of them making this buy.
Yeah, my gummies right now. These like gummies for it? How much are they, you know?
It wouldn't be having a price special then.
15 bucks for that. You want one? Yeah.
There you go.
Why don't you get one, please? You want the cookies or this one?
We'll just get this
Yeah,
one.
what's it, please? I like Charlie's. Does it taste like the actual Charlie's?
No, straight. 1609.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, boss.
Thanks, Amber. Thanks, Amber. That's good. Now, one of the things that's interesting to me, and the governor was holding these up, and he talked to you about the fact that they are sponsored by James Harden, and they're in the shape of basketball shoes. They're gummies shaped like basketball shoes, clearly a basketball theme. One of the things that's interesting to me is the fact that you had two kids who just finished basketball practice, picked a product, a THC product, with a basketball theme. Could be 100% coincidence. I mean, it could be 100% coincidence. Or it could be evidence that the marketing is working exactly as it's designed to work. There's two final points that I want to make. I was at actually a basketball game last night, and I was sitting with the mom of one of the kids who came and did this. So she knew that the governor was interested in this issue, and she knew that it was an important issue to the governor. She's also a school nurse. As we talked about the governor's concern about these products, she told me a couple stories about actually having to render care to students in her school who were having adverse reactions to these intoxicating hemp products. She said it's terrible. She told me a story about a kid going in a bathroom, finding a kid who was vomiting and covered in sweat. And he was actually ripping at his clothes, trying to get his clothes off because he was so uncomfortable. And when she talked to him a little bit, he told her that he had taken these Delta 8 products. She said that too often these kids pop too many of these gummies because they taste just like candy. And when they pop too many, that's when she has to get involved in treating them for the adverse effects. The second point and final point that I'll make actually is a message that somebody asked me to deliver straight to the governor. At that same game last night, there was a lady behind us who worked at the local juvenile court, and she heard us talking, and she went out of her way to ask me to thank the governor for addressing the problem of these intoxicating hemp products. She said that she sees far too many kids come through the juvenile court system through her job who are using these products on a consistent basis. And she said that she's seen firsthand the negative effects that these products are having on the mental well-being of the kids who are court involved. And Governor, she told me to thank you for your efforts to keep our kids safe from these dangerous products. And she asked again, she said she hopes that the General Assembly will partner with you in addressing this important issue. So thank you, Governor.
Thanks, Andy. So what is this stuff? I'm certainly certainly no expert, so we've asked an expert to come and to really kind of tell us exactly what this is. So let me now introduce Dr. Gary Wenk, Emeritus Professor of Behavioral Neuroscience at The Ohio State University. He's going to tell us about what actually the Delta 8 is and what medical effects it has, particularly on young people. Doctor, thank you.
Thank you
for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for being here. As the governor mentioned, I'm a scientist at OSU, and for the past 25 or more years, I've been studying the effects of cannabinoids and other chemicals on the brain. And my goal here is pretty simple. I want to tell you how we got to this point and why you should care about it. Right? What are these compounds doing? It begins as a story of two plants. The Delta 9 plant, the old cannabis plant, the marijuana plant that our parents and grandparents warned us about, and they probably used themselves. And that plant produced euphoria. People got high. We've seen movies about it and so forth. That compound is called THC, but we specifically call it Delta 9. Why we call it that is just an idiosyncrasy of the structure. But the Delta 9 gets you high, and people found that they knew what to expect from it, and we knew that most people who started using that Delta 9 in the plant tended to be, 18 to 20, the typical student at OSU, for example, and an awful lot of mine that I've met. The other part of the story is a different plant entirely, and that's a plant that we've all heard of, and it's called hemp. Hemp is grown widely around the world. It is a cash crop. It is a safe plant to consume. It does not contain THC by design. Hemp is used for many things, clothing, rope. It was grown on, Thomas Jefferson's plantation to use as rope. It's been around a long time. People didn't smoke it. It didn't produce euphoria. That was up until a few years ago. That was the status of things. We had this euphorogenic plant with THC, Delta 9, and then we had hemp. Well, hemp also contains another molecule that we hear about occasionally, and that molecule is CBD. You can buy CBD in grocery stores and vape shops and gas stations. It's easy to come by. It is not going to produce euphoria. It's not going to harm us. And it's quite popular, and it's creams, gels, and inhalants and so forth. People think that it relaxes them, but it's not a harmful compound. Well, a few years ago, what we found was that another compound in the euphorogenic plant was called Delta 8, the one the governor mentioned to you. It's a variation on a theme. Delta 9, Delta 8, they both make you high. It wasn't such a problem because Delta 8's hard to come by. Until recently, someone discovered that it's very easy to convert all that CBD sitting out there in those fields inside hemp into Delta 8 and Delta 9, but the Delta 8 was the one they did. So the situation today is where we can actually take a perfectly legal plant, hemp, and very easily on your stovetop with a recipe you can find on the internet, a little acid, a little heat, and you can make a nice batch of Delta 8 THC, which is just as euphorogenic and just as harmful as Delta 9. But it's perfectly legal because it comes from a legal source. Delta 9 is regulated by the DEA, and it's a Schedule I compound with no medical use. That's the claim. Today, that's how it's considered. Delta 9 is considered and known to be harmful to young brains. We know this very well. It's been studied extensively. The younger the brain, the more harm is done. When the brain is developing, it is very vulnerable to the actions of THC, cannabinoids in general. Now, as the brain gets older, we see less of that, but even teenagers' brains are vulnerable to the dysfunction and alteration and maturation that Delta 9 and Delta 8 can produce. So that's sort of where we find ourselves today. This wasn't a problem in the past. It wasn't even a problem when the Farm Bill was passed, but it's become one because it's become so easy to take a innocuous plant and an inert, harmless molecule like CBD and convert it into something which produces euphoria and brain damage in young brains. So that's how we got here, and that's the problems that we're dealing with. And as you just heard the governor describe, it's so easy for young. That wasn't the case, and never has been the case with Delta 9. We just didn't see it being used by so many young people. So I'll stop there and hand this over to.
Okay, we'll get.
Okay, question
Doctor,
and answer.
thank you very much. I'm sure they'll have some questions for you in a moment. Let me now introduce Lance Himes, Assistant Director of the Ohio Department of Health. He's going to tell us what the data shows in regard to calls coming into the poison control centers. Lance?
Thank you, Governor. So you heard a little bit about the effects of Delta 8 products in terms of longer term and brain development, but we're also seeing acute injuries to especially our youngest children here in Ohio. According to the Ohio Poison Control Center data, over the past 3 years, and that's 21 through 23, we've been receiving over 257 reported cases of Delta 8 poisoning. In 2023 alone, there were 102 reported poisonings, and of those, 40 were in children ages 5 and younger, a group most at risk for serious health impacts. And the number of children 5 and under who were poisoned has increased at least 50% year over year from 2021 to 2023. So we had 16 reported in 2021, up to 24 reported in 2022, and 40 reported poisonings last year. 90% of those reported poisonings end up in the hospital or emergency room for those children under 5. The most common symptoms seen in the emergency rooms include central nervous system depression, respiratory depression and trouble breathing, increased heart rate, blood pressure changes, vomiting, and other neurologic effects. So I want to take this time to remind all of you what the poison control toll-free number is. It's 1-800-222-1222. We encourage anyone needing those services to call.
Lance, thank you very much. In conclusion, when you package a product like this and you make a product like this, it does appeal, in fact, to kids. And this is exactly what the makers of this product are doing. We know they're harmful for kids. We know they're readily available. And, you know, I'm today, again, asking the state legislature to take immediate action. We cannot, local police cannot do anything. I cannot do anything without action by the state legislature. Senator Huffman, I know, is working on a bill to regulate Delta 8. There's been a question in the General Assembly as to whether or not this should be part of the marijuana bill or whether it should be a separate bill. Candidly, I don't care. I'm just asking the legislature to take action so that we can get these products off the shelf. And in the meantime, I would ask the retail establishments that are out there, you just heard about one, that are selling this product. They know what it is, as you heard recounted by Andy. They know what this stuff does, and the responsible thing to do is to take it off your shelf. But we do need action by the state legislature to make this illegal. It is, as the doctor indicated, it's a loophole. It's a loophole that's become apparent actually since the hemp bill was passed, since the agriculture bill was passed. It was not something that was really known that you could do this, but the opportunists have, again, moved in very, very quickly. And nothing wrong with being an opportunist, but when it's hurting kids and poses a serious risk to children, I think that means it's time for the state legislature to take action. So we'll be happy to answer any questions. And again, Doctor is up here, and I'm sure he'll answer any. Yeah. There's no law about it. So the answer is no. There's no age limit. Anybody can walk in and buy the product. So what the two individuals that Andy had go in I mean, it was perfectly legal what they did. It was perfectly legal for them to buy the product. It was perfectly legal for the product to be sold. So that's our problem. We need to change that, yeah.
Governor, over the summer, you guys had a task force airing the lead to let it about this very issue. Can you tell me, like, what prompted that task force and what did you guys conclude, that kind of thing?
Yeah, Andy, you want to take that?
So much of the work that was covered by the task force was the kind of work that the doctor was talking about. So looking at the issue, looking at the accessibility to kids, looking at what other states are doing. So ultimately, it resulted in the governor making the push that he just did today, and that he's been talking about, is making an appeal to the General Assembly to address this issue in a manner that keeps our kids safe.
Besides Virginia, can you think of any other state that is moving these into dispensaries?
Ooh, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I don't
What was
know.
the question? I didn't get.
Besides Virginia,
Oh.
do you know any other states that are moving it into dispensaries?
Right, when we were dealing with it in the Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee, that we just finished serving on that, we saw that most of the states, where Illinois and Nevada in particular, I remember, were introducing them, especially Nevada.
Governor, so just to clarify, are you asking for an all-out ban, including these products not being sold in dispensaries, or do you want these products to be moved to dispensaries? Because some states have moved to ban Delta 8.
Look, I would be very happy to have it banned. This is up to the legislature. You know, if it is moved, excuse me, if it is moved basically under the marijuana protocol, you wouldn't see packaging like that. They couldn't do that. It was going to be a plain wrapper. You couldn't sell it to a child. So, you know, that would certainly be great progress, and I would be satisfied with that. If they want to ban it, that's fine with me as well. The biggest concern we have is, again, it is a product that looks like it should be consumed by a child. It is a product that is advertised by the packaging as if it is for a child. So none of those things could occur if, in fact, it was under the protocol of the sale of marijuana. So there's two ways for them to move on it. I just want to get it off the shelves. I want to get it out of the reach of kids.
Are you asking for a ban on Delta 8 specifically, or cannabinoids as a whole? Because there are dozens.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
You've
We're
raised
going to rely on experts in this, and let me just say, we fully expect these issues, as they did with bath salts, continue to move, and so we have to, play whack-a-mole and knock it down when we can. Will somebody else come up with something else? Yes, they will, and that's our obligation to go deal with it.
The governor just summarized it perfectly. You asked the questions, it's way bigger than you realize. If you were to Google analogs of cannabinoids, THC in particular, it isn't just Delta 8, you'll find dozens of them out there that are being invented constantly. So this is the tip of the iceberg. This is the first compound that we're going to have to deal with that is legal and harmful, but slips under the radar. So this is just the first one. I think how we deal with this one will determine how we deal with the rest of them. So they'll all have to be handled. The FDA actually has a great deal of experience with this. When amphetamine was first invented, they got around it with methamphetamine. Then they got around that with MDA. Then they got around that with ecstasy. And they got around that with mollies. And each step of the way was a new molecule that wasn't legal that had to be made illegal. So that's what we're going to see in the future here. It's a very big developing story.
Governor, why the aggressive push for this now? Recognizing that Delta 8 is new, but it's been around at least for a bit now.
Well, I've been talking about this for quite a while, and I've asked the legislature to take action before I even started publicly talking about it. So I've been talking about it, and I've been pushing, and I'm going to continue to push. Again, what I hope today to do is with the doctor and with Andy's story and what Lance's statistic is, maybe to make this more real to people. That this could be their child that walks in, and get people to understand this stuff is out there. And frankly, we always hesitate to do a press conference like this because in one sense we're telling more people that, hey, this product is out there. But I made the decision that we have to get some action from the state legislature, and that's why I have the sense of urgency.
So is there anything you can do administratively?
No, I'm told no. The lawyers tell me no. If there's anything we could have done administratively, I would have done it.
Governor, with something like this and with asking the lawmakers to help you out and to help kids out, I mean, they haven't done anything on marijuana. You've been urging this for, I think, more than a month or a couple months now. What makes you think that they would come back and do this?
Well, look, I mean, I think these are good people, and I think it sometimes they're looking at a lot of different issues, but sometimes I think you have to make it real for people. It's kind of the way I understand things. It's easier to understand this package than it is for me to describe the package. If you can see this package, it's easier to understand that. I think having Dr. here, he has the ability to explain this in a scientific way, but also a very understandable way. And I think, the big concern is kids. The big concern is kids who are walking in, can legally buy it, and what that impact has on their brain. The younger the child, the more impact and the graver concern in regard to the cognitive development and the ability of that brain to function at the level it should function.
Where would you be at on an age ban? Because you talk about the big concern is kids. How do you remedy talking about a ban on products like this at the same time
I
that the
think-
state is making marijuana?
Yeah, I think
recreational legal?
that's a good question, and of course I didn't vote for that, but the people did. And so, look, what we have attempted to do, and what we will continue to attempt to do, is to follow the basic will of the people of the state of Ohio, which is they can buy a marijuana product. If you're 21, that there would be labeling that would indicate what it is, that the advertising would be limited, and certainly no advertising would be allowed that is aimed at children. So, if it can be fit under that, maybe it can be. I think that's something the legislature needs to look at. They can certainly hold hearings and make a decision how they want to proceed. But my job is I think, to alert people to a problem, and I'm going to continue to talk about it.
Can I hear a little bit?
Governor being able to reach out to the manufacturer of these products?
Well, I'm not sure who the manufacturer is. My experience in life, candidly, has been when we reach out to manufacturers or when we reach out to people who are selling a product, I have not been very successful by trying to persuade them to stop selling the product. That's been my experience as a prosecutor, and then my experience as the Attorney General. So, this is being sold at a BP place, So, I will ask them today to voluntarily take it off their shelves. But we know that many will not.
What do you have to say? I talked to the industry, and they're like, "Oh, there's only small businesses that are going to be affected. The majority of them are good players who are going to cart them and keep the products by the cigs and behind the thing." What do you say to that?
Well, I say that they're selling it to kids. I'm saying it's marketed to kids. So, and the scientific data clearly indicates that kids should not be consuming this because it affects their brain and has potential impact for a long-term impact on their cognitive development, on their development of that brain. So, I don't think they have a high moral ground to make this case that they should be selling this junk to kids.
What about the ones that,
I'm sorry?
even if they're not? I mean, I went out last night for 2 hours, and everybody carted me, and I thought,
Well, good for them. Good for them.
Can I hear a little bit about the 15-year-olds and how you found them, what the whole deal with that plan was?
Yeah, so I used a nephew. So I have a 17 and 14-year-old daughter, and I was going to use my 17-year-old daughter And I didn't want to use, she was too old. Even though she's still underage, I didn't want any claim that we were somehow trying to trick people or anything like that. So I was going to use my 14-year-old daughter. She was a little scared to do it by herself. So I have a nephew who is 15 years old, and then we have a family friend who plays basketball with my nephew that's a 15-year-old, or has a 15-year-old as well. So I asked the parents if they'd be willing to let their kids do it. They understand that it's important. They understand the danger that this stuff poses to their kids, and they don't want their kids to be able to go and buy this without, they don't want to be able to go into the store and buy it. So they allowed their children to participate, and they went and did it. And something that's interesting is look, if you look at this package, if you look at this one right here, the tiger on the front of this package has red eyes and has basically a joint hanging out of his mouth. All right, there can be no argument that this is, hey, this is to help you sleep. Hey, this is to help you with your swelling in your joints or something like that. This is designed to get people high. The clerk asked me last night. That was the first thing he said. Hey, take it easy. You don't want to get too high on this stuff. That was what he was inferring. I don't think there's anybody in this group, and certainly probably very few people who are listening to this, who think that it's a good idea to target products designed solely to get people high, and that's what these are this way designed to do, to children. So it's not a heavy lift. It shouldn't be a big ask for the General Assembly or for anybody to take steps necessary to make sure that this doesn't get into our kids' hands. And if retailers are carding, good. That's what you should be doing. But let's put something on the books that ensures that the bad actors can't get this poison to our kids as well.
Yeah, Doctor, let me ask Doctor. You want to talk about, you and I were talking before, and your concern about these kids, what impact this could have with any kind of regular use of this stuff.
Right.
What do we know? What do we don't know?
Actually, we know a little bit about all the age groups now. There have been clinical trials that have been done, not often in the U.S. Some of them have been done here and do get published, and they're peer-reviewed, so we tend to trust them. So what do we know about this? When we look at the age groups that we tend to associate with the Delta 9, they tend to be 18 to 25. There's a peak around age 20, and they use it sporadically once or twice a week. Occasionally you have a few students who choose to use it on a daily basis. That tends to be more rare. But then we look at the grade school and high school kids, people who are around puberty, plus or minus 5 years. And oddly, what you're finding is that they find these things and they will use them continuously all day long, every day. They share them with friends freely and easily. And what we're finding is that there's less self-regulation in their behavior in the younger children, which is doubly worse because the brains of my 21-year-olds can probably handle it a little bit better than the brains of 8-year-olds. And so we're finding that these 8 and 10-year-old children are dosing their brains on a regular basis. So that asks the governor, I talked about this issue too. Does dose matter, and the frequency matters, and it does with all drugs. It does with alcohol and nicotine that we're familiar with. But what's really bad is when you start to use a drug on a daily basis. Even low doses on a daily basis can produce quite a bit of harm, especially in a young brain that is busy growing every day. And we've seen the consequences in these studies, that the children have difficulty paying attention in class. They become emotionally unstable. They have difficulty learning things, and they stop attending classes. They start acting out at home, and the parents know something's wrong. But, if they're just eating cereal, apparently, in their bedroom, you don't really notice it. It's so easy for them to hide. But as we've mentioned many times, that's why this is a crisis, because it is a perfectly legal compound that does a great deal of well-documented harm. That's where we are right now. This is why it's come to a head. And you asked a question before about why weren't we concerned about this a few years ago when it first came up. Well, Delta 8 has gotten a lot easier to get now. Delta 8 shows up in the marijuana plant, but it's in really low levels, and it's tough to get out. So it was commercially expensive, costly to do. But you could make it and you could sell it, and it wasn't regulated. So that was why they bothered trying. Well, today Delta 8's really easy to make, so it's become a crisis for that reason. And now, And this is why we have to have it regulated. You know, I served on the Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee for 5 years, and we dealt with a lot of the issues that I think you brought up, which was that how do you decide who's going to use it and under what conditions? Well, we worked through a lot of those regulations and to make it work for people 21 and older. So we have a framework. We can apply it. We don't have to, we don't have to push the legislature too far, but we do need to push them. They've got to act on this because it's become a crisis for kids that, we can't wait on any longer. Yes.
Yesterday when I was doing my going to stores, somebody sold me, swear to God, I have a photo. Somebody sold me a joint that is THCA.
Yes. So,
Can we talk about that?
sure.
Is that going to be covered in this?
No, it won't. That's, this is one of those analogs. THCA is what the plant makes prior to making THC, the Delta 9. It's a precursor. There turns out to be a family of them, and you can get those. And so it's like a prebiotic from that logic. You take it, and you wait for your body to convert it into something active. So for all intents and purposes, it's, still THC Delta 9. It just isn't yet.
So because it's a precursor, not an analog, it would be covered in this bill?
Well, we don't have a bill yet. This is my answer to this gentleman over here. You're going to have to decide this in every compound that's brought before you. We are going to have to deal with THCA and B, there's some others, the precursor compounds, because they're out there. And they are tested for. So when we sell product at dispensaries here in Ohio and the other states, we do measure them because they do matter. And you need to know about it as a consumer. But that was how we were dealing with Delta 9 products in dispensaries here in Ohio and across the nation. And I should also point out, you don't have to go to a BP or anywhere. You can just Google Delta 8 gummies on Amazon, and you get 15, 20 products that you can order from the comfort of your own home, and they don't ask you how old you are. Perfectly legal. Yeah.
Why wasn't this part of House Bill 86, the bill that you passed up to the Senate passed?
I'm sorry, why wasn't what?
Delta 8, my understanding is Delta 8 is not addressed in House Bill 86, but she worked, it is addressed in it?
It isn't, my understanding is that it was put into the bigger bill that was ultimately passed. The problem is the House is not taking any action.
So it doesn't have to say Delta 8, it's just taking the same different.
Well, I don't have the language in front of me, so I can't.
I searched it, it's not in there.
Yeah. I think we're talking about intoxicating hemp products is really what we're talking about.
Is that how the state is choosing to define these products? Because like when you Google intoxicating hemp, it comes up, but like I most often, like and even trying to explain it as a journalist, explain what these products are, it's obviously a very long-winded explanation of the chemical compounds. Is the state going to, moving forward, is the state defining these as intoxicating hemp products?
The state is going to have to do what we've done in the past. It's what we've done, for example, with the bath salt problem. As the doctor said, people continue to be able to move the bar, and we're going to have to react to each one. And look, there's a public policy decision to be made. Each one of these contains a public policy decision. And it seems just to me this is the decision that's in front of us today, and that is, do you want kids to be able to buy this stuff? And I think the answer is no. So therefore, we should take some action and ask the legislature to take action. Will there be something that comes up in 6 months? Will it come up in 2 years? Yeah, probably. That's why we have the legislature that's in session. Yeah, that's why, we have the opportunity to react. That's what we have to do, is react.
Is it fair to ban or change Delta 8 when you only went to one gas station and it's possible that every other one is not selling this to minors?
Well, first of all, there's no there's no standard. There's no law. It seems that people would expect us to have a law that says when you can sell a certain product. I mean, Lord knows we've had enough discussions about marijuana in the last year. I think there's been a consensus established in the state. One of the things in the consensus is, you have to be 21 to buy the product. So we don't rely on the goodwill of every clerk on any other product. So it doesn't make any sense that we would here. And we've not done a survey of every place and sent somebody in every place and tested it. But okay, anything else?
I was just curious, with the statistics from the poison control centers, and you may not have this information is ask, but are these accidental poisonings coming from children who have gone and bought these products and then taken them? Or are they
don't know.
children who are accessing them in the home, like you see with states that have legal marijuana?
I don't think, Lance, you can correct me, I don't think we know that. That's not what normally comes in. Somebody has a problem, and they're trying to deal with the problem. I don't know, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, Governor, we have the Ohio Poison Control Centers break it down by age groups. So one of the age groups is 0 to 5 years of age. I don't think they're buying it. The next group is 6 to 12, and then 13 to 19, and then we've got adults 20 and up. So those two lower age groups are clearly getting access to it, probably in a home accidentally, because it's candy, and they want to taste it.
So there are instances in those youngest age groups?
Absolutely, and they're growing.
And we can make that chart can be made available, right? We
Yes.
have that chart.
Correct.
We can put that up. You can see it, yeah. Okay, yes.
Well, actually, I want to ask a question. Yesterday, lawmakers introduced Senate Bill 212, which would require people in Ohio to provide identification to access porn sites. Do you think that this is an invasion of their privacy?
I have no idea what the bill is, other than what you just read. Thank you for reading it, but I haven't thought about it, didn't know it existed, so. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so that wraps up this press conference here from Governor Mike DeWine.
All right, Andy, get your props back.
The key here from all this is they did that, like, quote unquote sting operation. It's not illegal for minors to purchase this, and that seems to be the main problem that the governor has, calling on officials to have some sort of legislation done, whether that be brought in through by the House or the Senate, or that is something that is done by the governor himself. We do not know. But it seems like the main problem is that there is just flat out no legislation on this, and something that absolutely needs to change. All right, our 3 o'clock newscast is ending over on 19 News, but of course we will see you for much more until 6:30 when we have our newscast end. Much more here, both on air and online. For now, I'm Jeff Slauson of 19 News. Have a great night. Much more to come, of course, over the next few hours.
19 News, now streaming on Samsung Smart TV. Search for channel 1035.